Good morning. I'm Esther Manheimer, Mayor of the City of Asheville, and I'd like to welcome you to the September 4th, 2025 Agenda Briefing Work Session. All council members and staff are participating virtually. Please be advised that this meeting is intended for discussion purposes only, so we don't take any formal action and we don't take public comment. The live meeting will be streamed on the city's YouTube channel, accessible through the YouTube icon on the city's website or via the live stream. You also have the option to listen to the meeting live via phone by calling 855-925-2801 and entering meeting code 11882. Council and staff, when I call your name, please unmute yourselves and say a quick hello. Vice Mayor Antoinette Mosley.
Good morning.
Councilmember Bo Hess.
Good morning.
Councilmember Kim Roney.
Good morning.
Councilmember Maggie Ullman.
Hey, everybody.
Councilmember Shanika Smith.
Good morning.
Councilmember Sage Turner.
Good morning.
City Manager Deborah Campbell.
Good morning.
Assistant City Manager Ben Woody.
Good morning.
And the newly named Assistant City Manager Jade Dundas.
Good morning, all.
City Attorney Brad Branham.
Good morning.
And City Clerk Maggie Burleson.
Good morning.
Okay, and I will turn it over to the manager.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, good morning, everyone. As you know, the council agenda briefing meetings are designed to help you prepare for your upcoming business meetings. Your next meeting is scheduled on Tuesday, September the 9th. The meeting will start at 5:00 p.m. and will be held in the council chamber located on the second floor of City Hall. The run of show for today's meeting will start with a review of items on your business meeting that's scheduled again on September the 9th. We anticipate that Tuesday's meeting will be another long one, but hopefully not as long as your last meeting in August. However, you all are also scheduled to have a closed session immediately following your meeting on September the 9th. I know, don't be so sad. I see all the sad faces. In terms of the business agenda, there are a number of presentations from two outside groups to include the Community Reparations Commission to present their final report, and the Aesthetics Committee will report on the West Patton Avenue I-26 Bridge recommendations. There will be a manager's report. There's two public hearings, a second reading on the proposed change to the panhandling high traffic zones ordinance, and lastly, a resolution to allocate funding to support the WNC Affordable Housing Fund. Assistant City Manager Ben Woody will provide a more detailed explanation of these items, including those on the consent portion of your business agenda. He will then review the upcoming council committee agendas as well as upcoming items on your 8-week agenda calendar. We don't have any items identified under the other issues and concerns section of this agenda today. I'll now turn it over to Ben to review the first item, which is your September 9th business agenda. Ben.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Again, good morning, Mayor, members of council. I will start with the consent agenda. I'll cover items that I think are of interest, but if I miss anything or if you have any questions, please just stop me by raising a hand. So for your regular meeting next week, we do not have any proclamations, and I'll start the review of the consent agenda with item E. This is a budget amendment that allows for the city to accept $95,000 in grant funds from Dogwood Health, and this will be for the use of the continuum of care. The COC has not yet designated any of these funds for expenditure, but has identified several priority areas for the potential use of these funds. Moving on, item F. This is an important item too. This is our third cash flow loan from the state related to recovery. This most recent loan from the state is just over $12 million. So that brings the total amount of our cash flow loans from the state to just under $17 million. So these loans, while they're not forgivable, they do come with a 0% interest rate, and they're designed to be cash flow bridge, or to work as a cash flow bridge until we begin receiving FEMA public assistance reimbursements. So even though these loans can't be utilized for revenue or to fund non-Helene expenses, ultimately they do help the overall city cash flow and strengthens our balance sheet as we move into the recovery process. Moving down a little bit, item L, this is a contract in the amount of $292,000 to begin the design phase work for the London Road sidewalk project. So this is a good news item. As council is probably aware, this is actually our third 2024 GEO bond construction project that is now underway. And again, I think a good example of how quickly staff has been able to put these bond dollars to work in the community. Item M is another design contract, but this one is associated with the recovery project. This is another important one. This contract authorizes the design and engineering services to begin for the required rebuild of the Gaseous Creek Bridge and Dam. It's a very complex project. So we're excited to get the design work underway on that piece of infrastructure. This contract will move forward. It is concurrent with the design and construction work associated with the broader Azalea Park improvements. So this is part of that overall complex project. But again, we wanted to go ahead and get the work moving on the dam and Gaseous Creek Bridge replacement.
Ben,
Yes.
I tried bugging you this morning about it. I got a call from our DOT board representative, Billy Clark, on this item. And he says the DOT's given us the paperwork and the ball's in our court.
Good. And I think, Jade, if you want to add anything to that, Jade's been a little more.
At the last council meeting, we also had the temporary bridge item on there, and so that's where we're working with DOT. So we're pleased to hear that. I think it's going to be a real positive thing for the community out there to hear that we're moving that thing forward.
They're pretty excited about their temporary bridge model. I've seen them in other counties.
Yeah, they've done a lot of that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Mayor. And yeah, DOT's been an excellent partner in trying to work through the challenges we have out in this area. So moving on, item N is also recovery related contract, and this authorizes the design work to begin for the restoration of the city's building at 8 River Arts Place. This is an historic building that was significantly damaged by floodwaters associated with Helene. It's a complex project because it is listed on the National Historic Register. So any work done to that building has to occur in close coordination with state and federal agency experts. And a lot of that is maintaining the historical integrity of the structure, but we also have to be mindful of maximizing the future resilience of the structure at the same time. Councilman Ullman.
Thanks. Reading the brief blurb we have attached to the agenda item, it mentions that this is in the special flood hazard zone of AE. I guess I would just love some more information. You know, when I think about when we're talking with other property owners who are in those similar zones, they're really asking themselves if rebuilding is wise. So I am asking that question as well. I'm not sure that that is a wise investment of public dollars to put something back in the zone. Looking at the maps, I mean, this is a high target place with high, even like using our data sets, it's highly likely to flood again. So I guess it would be helpful. I know that this is a design contract, so you don't necessarily know what resiliency designs would even be in there, but I just want to flag, I have a real hesitation of green lighting $250,000 to one of our buildings.
Maggie, I appreciate that. And I raised that issue myself with staff. Yeah. And if you give us just, we will be able to, either through the follow-up report provide you with some additional information and more detailed information. And I raised that issue for the same reason that you raised it in terms of precedent. If we're not going to set the standard for rebuilding and development in flood zones, then I don't think that we can expect private property owners to want to mitigate. And so, yeah, we're working on that. And I think our biggest challenge is it's a historic property. So we're trying to kind of think through and work through those issues as well in terms of, actually tearing it down and what that may challenge.
Like, we might not have the flexibility to tear it down because it's on the historic register.
Yeah, we have to go through a lot of steps in order to do it, but we're working through it, and we're definitely having those conversations. And I appreciate you raising that issue. And
because even in the blurb that you guys had, like, we already gave ourselves a variance in 2016. So I look forward to reading more, but this might be one that we as a council want to think about longer than just to being. Anyway, yep.
Maggie, I appreciate you bringing this up. I share similar concerns. Oh, I think I might have just cut somebody off.
Sorry.
I guess I'm just wondering if this is going to move forward and you're going to give us more information, or you're going to give us more information and we may not move forward.
We are going to give you some more information, and then you all decide if you want to move it forward. Obviously, we'll have a staff recommendation.
I just want to make sure we're talking, I know which building you're talking about. You're talking about the building that's kind of centered there, and it's the one that Black Wall Street AVL rents or had rented. Is that same building? Okay, thanks.
And just to bring more
sorry,
clarity.
what was the
Excuse
answer
me?
to that question? Sorry. It is that same building.
Yes, it is
Correct.
that.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was trying to look at it on the map to confirm that. Sorry, Shanika, go please.
Yeah, and just to bring more clarity to the question that Councilwoman Mosley presented, I think that's the only public bathroom in that location, in that area, right? Okay.
Also information on they obviously are not currently daily occupying it, but are they still in a lease with us? Kind of what's the relationship we have with that tenant currently? Just more insight into all those dynamics before I need that before I can think about this as a consent agenda item.
Yeah, we'll get it as part of follow-up and include in the staff report more detailed information.
Does it, I don't really want to take it off the consent agenda. I wonder if there's a way to get that information so that we can be ready to vote on it Tuesday. I mean,
We are, Mayor.
And is it, I assume we've done our own assessment to determine the amount of damage and whether or not it triggers current building code or it's grandfathered under building code.
Historic grandfathered.
Because of the historic designation. Yeah. I mean, it is a pretty important asset. And if this is something that's reimbursed by FEMA for us to repair, that would matter to me.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that we make it as resilient as possible so that we are not, again, setting a precedent that we're asking private property owners to reach a higher standard than we're willing to reach ourselves. So
yeah, no, it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like we've made the assessment that we're under the 50% threshold. And so we can do the restoration. So it's just the same as any private property owner. I guess if we could also clarify just whether or not the cost of repair is reimbursable.
right. And again,
Additional-
mitigation. That's what I'm most concerned about, is how resilient will the building be going forward?
It'd be good to know if it flooded in the 2004 floods.
we're piling up the research before Tuesday, but we're-
Yep, we will.
Well, and
We'll
I
have
think
it as part of the staff report. I'm sorry.
part of it is this is the first time we're having to reconsider what many of our neighbors in the district have been dealing with over the last several months. And so this is our first parcel. And so I think just the due diligence for my sake, because it's the tip of a spear of a much bigger conversation of what is our vision for rebuilding in this area. So that's where I'm coming from. And I see you address or raise that same concern, Deborah, as staff has been working through this. So catching us up on the analysis will be very helpful.
Can I ask a process question about these? We have a ton of stuff on our consent agenda now for every meeting that's Helene related in terms of like contracts and things like this as well. And I guess I kind of thought that the policy finance committee operating as a recovery committee and looking at infrastructure would sort of have the first run at topics like this, just to sort of heads up before they went directly to the agenda. I know that's kind of a fine line, a little bit difficult because some of it is just very administrative. It's not something that council really needs to mull over, but maybe we can try to flag some of these things that might be discussed at the policy committee first before it comes to council. So just thinking out loud about that.
Okay, good discussion. I'm going to keep moving. My last item I plan to cover on consent is item R. This is a resolution requesting the NCDOT to dedicate a section of I-40 in memory of James Daniels, and his family has initiated this request. I just want to note to council that it does require your unanimous vote in order for this to move forward to DOT for their consideration. That's the last item I plan to cover. Any other questions or any items on consent you want to discuss? Councilman Ronnie.
Yeah, I'm getting some questions about the citywide speed limit, and I know that we have multiple, looks like 9 roads around the city being changed in item Q to 25-mile-per-hour speed limit. I know that that doesn't address design standards, but given where we are with our recovery work, is there a conversation about a request for a 25-mile-per-hour citywide speed limit, and or can you just remind us which committee that would go to?
We have not had a conversation about a comprehensive 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. I think it would be PEDE probably that would go to in order to have that conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Or maybe public safety.
Thank you, Councilman Rowan. Any other questions on consent? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move to presentations and reports. As Ms. Campbell mentioned, our first one is from the Community Reparations Commission, and members of the commission will, as part of this agenda item, will present their final report and recommendations. And this presentation will generally include background information on their work and a prioritization of report recommendations, including those that are recovery related. And Salah Manaya Merritt from our Department of Human Relations, Anti-Discrimination and Compliance will also be present to discuss how staff will help operationalize these recommendations. So we're looking forward to that report from the CRC. Our next presentation, again, another committee established by council, is the I-26 Connector Aesthetics Committee final report. And as part of the I-26 project changes to Patton Avenue's flyover, you, City Council, provided the Aesthetics Committee with a task to participate in the NCDOT-led design process for that piece of infrastructure, and they will be before you to provide their final report to council about their participation in that process. Then our last item in this section of the agenda is the manager's report, and we'll have employee recognitions along with a very important item, and we're all excited to have this, is we'll have Jeremy Knighton. Our emergency manager, Jeremy Knighton, will be there at your meeting to discuss the tropical storm Helene after action report process and document that his team has been leading the city through. So excited to kind of share an update on that after action report. Councilwoman Roney.
Thank you for the emails that we've gotten around this request, but I was hoping maybe in the memo or follow-up documents, I didn't see any links. One of the requests I had was including from our representative, Eric Ager, what was our emergency operations plan before Helene so that we would better know what to compare it to, where our growth areas were, opportunities to celebrate the work that we did before that saved lives. And so I have the, the elected officials handbook, but it would help to know what our staff processes and plans were before we went into the storm.
We will get that information to you. And Jeremy will be, as part of his presentation, he will have just about all that you requested in a summary fashion, of course.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Any other questions on presentations and reports? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move to public hearings. I am going to share my screen for public hearing item A, so let me do that. This item is a conditional zoning request for the Deerfield retirement community. City Council had previously approved a conditional zoning on August 24th of 2021. That original approval in 2021 was for the purposes of constructing a major expansion of the existing retirement community, along with associated improvements such as parking, open space, and sidewalk. What this project is proposing through this new conditional zoning is really a major amendment of that 2021 approval, and it's similar in scale to the previously approved conditional zoning, but it does have some differences, and you can see the exhibit. This kind of shows what's proposed with this conditional zoning. Most of this proposed development is going to occur on the southern half of the main parcel. I think you can see kind of a vicinity map in the upper right-hand corner. And what this includes is mainly new building construction, a lot of that, but also additions to existing buildings such as the skilled nursing facility and the community center. So some pretty significant additions to existing buildings. And this did go before planning and zoning just last night. I understand that was a really long meeting, not necessarily because of this item, but planning and zoning did recommend unanimous approval of this conditional zoning application.
Actually, I think it was like 4-1.
Was it 4-1? Okay. So not unanimous, but a 4-1 approval of this request.
I just got an email from Will that said it was 5-0.
We will make sure that is accurately stated in the staff report and the presentation on Tuesday. Okay, I'm going to move to. Go ahead.
A second, I'm
Yes.
sorry. So we're still at 5 members on P&Z. Do we need to rectify that? I know we lost one and he passed away.
We're
I
in,
think Maggie can probably lay out the path forward for that.
we had anticipated already having a member. However, some of the council members and Mr. Barton Chair had asked us to re-advertise. Therefore, the new appointment will be made on October 28th.
Thanks, Maggie.
Okay, thank you. Our second public hearing item is one initiated by staff, and this is really a kind of a cleanup or a housekeeping of our Board of Adjustment requirements. And so what this does, 3 things really. Number one, it aligns our Board of Adjustment membership requirements with North Carolina general statutes. It also, another important thing it does is it removes the quasi-judicial public noticing. So, and the state now allows this, you don't have to notice these variance hearings in the newspaper. And that makes a lot of sense because really the only way to participate in these hearings is if you have standing. So anybody that's impacted or has standing will get a notice. This just removes the requirement to do the broader kind of traditional notice of a Board of Adjustment meeting. And the last thing that the last thing that it does, kind of a relic of the past. I think our ordinance right now literally requires that a variance application or a Board of Adjustment application comes to the clerk's office, which is not terribly efficient. So this now allows people to apply directly to the planning department, who is the department that administers this board anyways. And before I conclude, I do want to go back and note one thing about our membership requirements. We're changing the numbers of members and alternates, but we have an unusual thing here in Asheville is by a session law adopted by the General Assembly, we are required to allow the county to appoint one regular member and one alternate member. And that is, I would say, a relic of when we had ETJ. We no longer have that anymore, but we still have the statutory requirement to allow the county to make 2 appointments. So this does carry that kind of unusual appointment process forward. But largely the summary is this really just brings us in compliance and consistent with state law and best practices. Councilwoman Roney.
Ben, can you share a little bit more about the notice requirement? I hear you saying that a notice in the newspaper is an example, but is that the only example that would change? Because sometimes one might not receive a notice if you're a neighbor, but you might see a sign as you're commuting past the property. So would the signage still be required and it's just not the newspaper notice, or is it all notice?
Brad, are you able to help me with that level of detail on this one?
So I'm not sure honestly about the sign. We'll have to get back to you on that, but this would eliminate the newspaper notice. And it is important, as Ben already said, to remember that this only applies to quasi-judicial hearings where the general public, unlike in a conditional zoning, is not allowed to participate anyway. Only those people who have what's identified as legal standing get to participate in these processes, which means those people have to receive a mailed notice. So they are getting a separate legal notice. This essentially takes away what we consider to be the superfluous general newspaper notice. We've been seeing as recently as last night at P&Z, a tremendous amount of confusion created by that with people showing up, and we have to tell them legally we're not even allowed to let you participate in these things. So it keeps the notice in place, which is the primary mailing notice, and eliminates the secondary notice. But all of those people with the legal ability to participate still get the primary notice.
Yeah, so Councilman Morone, we can dig into that a little more. I mean, I will say that I know it's a newspaper notice. I want to confirm the other elements, as you said, the signage and the mailing. I'll say one thing. I do believe, Brad, if I remember, the statutory minimum for like mail notices is adjacent property owners, and we actually go above and beyond that in Asheville. So I do think a lot of our notices above and beyond the state minimums, but we'll include a clarification on what exactly is changing with that in the follow-up document.
I guess the curiosity I have is that we already have residents telling us that they are missing information and it feels like they're getting information last minute. I know for myself, I get a lot of mail and it's not specifically to me. So folks might just be throwing things in the recycle bin. So if we did have some element that was designed to be public facing for the people in close proximity, we might get some people who don't get to participate, but we'd be more likely to get the people who are meant to be included. So thank you for following up.
Great, thank you for that question. Any other questions on the public hearing items? Okay, moving to unfinished business. We have item A, which is the second reading of the ordinance amendment to the city's public solicitation ordinance. You voted on this at your last meeting. Since this ordinance amendment or this ordinance section does include criminal penalties. State law does require a second reading before this change becomes effective. So you'll have to take a second vote on this at your meeting on Tuesday. Councilwoman Ullman.
Since we reviewed it last month, I've just been hearing some questions. So it would be helpful if in the presentation or in materials shared with council around, isn't it already illegal to be on the median? What's the distinction between this ordinance for people on medians in general on Patton Avenue, for example, or this is about verbally addressing people, but can people still hold signs in these areas? So just some more of those questions that just getting more information out there for clarity.
If I may, Councilmember Alma, would it help for me to address some of those right now as well? I know we have some people who listen to these, so perhaps we can share some of that information publicly. To answer the two questions that you've asked, it was prior to the adoption of this, which is not adopted until council decides that is the case following your next reading. It is currently not legal in the city of Asheville to, I'm just going to use the term panhandle, solicit panhandle anywhere in the median, on the shoulder of the road, or within the road itself. Another way to say that is that panhandling of any nature is not designed for those individuals participating in that to be in a place where it is unsafe for pedestrians to be. It is absolutely legal for those individuals who are soliciting to people in vehicles to do so from a sidewalk. Anywhere where it is designed for pedestrians to safely coexist around vehicles. That continues to be legal.
So if the roadside is a sidewalk, you can panhandle from that location.
That's correct.
Because very often the roadside is a sidewalk, as opposed to a median or some other surface. Okay.
That is absolutely correct, Mayor. And to answer your second question about what is the distinction between what this new proposed amendment would do from where we are today, is adding what we call high traffic zones and expanding a couple of expanding one high traffic zone, adding two additional ones. That terminology is a little confusing because it doesn't really have anything to do with what we consider vehicular traffic. It is pedestrian traffic. And that's why it exists in areas where APD has shown a high degree of calls regarding solicitation and correlating to high pedestrian traffic areas. And the only additional limitation, in addition to all of the limitations that are already in place, is that in those high traffic zones, you are not allowed to verbally solicit. You can still, in any one of those areas, high traffic or not, hold a sign. You could hold, any other vessel out without actually making a verbal request for those things. That is the one additional element.
How does that not run up against like First Amendment rights? I mean, aren't they just speaking?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Councilmember Hess. The nature of the way that we've designed the ordinance is to comply with and conform to existing laws around First Amendments. Without going into too much legal detail here, the most current influential case coming out of the U.S. Supreme Court is the City of Austin case, which dealt with this particular issue and discussing what can be placed in terms of local regulation around these kind of limits. So we've designed our ordinance to allow for the First Amendment activity to still take place. For instance, in areas outside of high traffic zones, you can still do this. You can still absolutely solicit. Even if it's vehicular, you can still solicit from areas where it's safe to do so, i.e. a sidewalk. In high traffic zones, where we're receiving a greater amount of public safety calls, there's this one additional limitation, which is no verbal solicitation, but still preserving the ability to do so, again, as an example, by holding a sign or holding a vessel. So we have tried to do this in terms of making sure that we're preserving the First Amendment eligibility under the existing U.S. Supreme Court case law, while still placing regulations to address the public safety concerns.
Thank you, Brad. Seeing no other questions, I'll continue moving. We have a new business item, and this is a request to allocate $10 million of the 2024 general obligation housing bond to the WNC Affordable Housing Loan Fund, which is a fund administered by Self-Help Credit Union. The WNC Loan Fund provides low interest loans to developers and was created in early 2024 through a partnership between Self-Help Credit Union and Dogwood Health Trust. The loan fund is currently used to create and preserve affordable housing in Western North Carolina. Self-Help does have similar loan funds in 4 other regions in North Carolina, so this would be the 5th. The city's participation in the loan fund, and an important reason for that, is that it strategically leverages city funds with other partners such as Dogwood Health, or if the county in the future decided to join, you're able to leverage those combined funds and increase the number of affordable housing projects that can be supported through that fund. The consolidated loan process also allows for the developer to apply for these loans on a rolling basis. So there's, it's available throughout the year. One of the things, another benefit too, is it allows the self-help staff to take on all the underwriting and loan administration duties that are typically associated with this. And of course, from our staff perspective, self-help taking that on does free up our capacity to work on other city council affordable housing priorities. This item was discussed at the August HCD Council Committee meeting, and that committee recommended unanimous approval of a $10 million allocation to the WNC Affordable Housing Loan Fund. Any questions? All right, very excited about that opportunity. Last thing on your business agenda is, and I'll come back to you, Councilman Turner, you have a closed session once you conclude this meeting on Tuesday. Councilman Turner.
Sorry, I couldn't get to the hand fast enough. I guess the only thing I'll raise, just so others are aware in case they're not, is that there is a request to maybe reallocate some into the housing trust fund so that we have another loan bucket, not just the self-help loan bucket, right? Because like we're getting some emails now about the HTF process. So, is everybody aware of that? If not, maybe we can send a summary. It was a conversation that happened at HCD.
Who's making that request, Sage? The community members from the...
community members that have applied for the funding in the past. And so we can do things. We don't have to pull it from the loan fund with self-help, but there's other ways we could reallocate just to make sure there's some money available. I'm not sure if that's everybody's interest. Just want to make sure that everybody knows that that's kind of on the table as an ask.
Kim here, I would definitely appreciate a summary just to better understand. I watched the HCD meeting and I'm hearing from some folks, of course, the concern about like, could Affordable Housing Advisory Committee be brought on to make some recommendations as we're getting ready to allocate huge chunks of funding, but also some strategies across the country where cities are chasing the rental market numbers when it's possible that we have a potential for more housing stability if we're focusing on home ownership models, that could also be a tool for alleviating the rental market because folks would like to buy a home, but there's not a home to buy. So it would help to know like what's our plan for getting some of these funds into home ownership as a part of the bigger picture. I know HCD is working on that, but when we have the state and federal funds coming in too, it would help to see the big picture.
Yeah, Kim, that was from the request I was speaking to is ABCLT. It was about home ownership programs.
I would also support that. I think not only deeply affordable, but deeply accessible housing. I know Habitat for Humanity, Mountain Housing Opportunities stand ready to really help. And the cool thing about Habitat for Humanity is they control the whole process, from supply, the financial process, the building, the loan. And so folks who might not be able to qualify for traditional loans are able to qualify through them. So I would really support that. And then also making sure that when we're doing the rental companies, that some of the project or some of the property managers will not take folks because of, certain misdemeanors or felonies or credit scores. So making sure that we have, again, deeply accessible housing and we're not leaving folks out.
Ben,
So,
one
go ahead,
last-
I'm sorry.
It might be helpful to hear if staff, Sasha, Nikki, someone in the housing world, had a recommendation on if we should pull funds, if we're considering this, if we should pull funds from the loan fund pool or a different pool of bond funds. I'd just be curious because I know they've done all the work to get us to this place, and I'd be curious if they had a recommendation.
Yeah. So real quick, just to kind of, I think I can address some of that, and this will also be in the staff report. So we do include a bond spending strategy. So the first piece of that is 10 of the 20 million would go to multifamily construction through the WNC Affordable Housing Loan Fund. So that's really the one piece we're asking council to consider next week. But the remaining 10 million right now, and this will, we'll be back in front of HCD to have these discussions, but the remaining 10 million, 3 million of that would be dedicated to city affordable housing projects such as 319 Biltmore and Oak Hill. 6 million of that would remain as a housing trust fund allocation, but that would be targeted for down payment assistance, home ownership projects, and land acquisition. So in other words, all the HTF stuff we do, excluding the multifamily rental construction, which would be routed to the WNC Affordable Housing Loan Fund. And then lastly, there's another $1 million that would be set aside for home repair. So all that fund is from the 20 million bond, but remember, you still have the money from the state and even our DR funds to supplement all that across all these programmatic areas. And that's in the staff report you'll receive as part of this item. Councilman Roney.
Was the Talbert lot in the staff report?
The Talbert lot is not, that I can see looking at it.
Because I know we were having this conversation at the retreat about land banking strategies and sort of those big picture ideas for our recovery. And one of the things I heard my colleagues around this table talking about was that we've already been banking land that we need to deliver on. And I know the Talbot lot is among those, especially because it's literally the closest proximity to the transit center and the best practices around transit-oriented development. So I just don't want us to forget about it.
Yeah, and I can maybe talk to CED staff. I know we've identified a couple of city-owned parcels that I know are already in a development process, but you're right, Councilman Rowan. There are other parcels that would need consideration as well. So thank you for that comment.
I'd love us to stick the landing first on the Matthews Ford property. I mean, we're just, I'm glad we've got some good land banked for future development, but we've got some stuff to finish on our to-do list for sure. Sorry, Bo.
No worries. The across the Civic Center, the pit of despair, I think we should go ahead and either build some housing there or sell it off and get that money. But we need to do something with that area. And that's a perfect place for housing as well.
Any other questions on new business item A? Okay. I did not do this in the time that Jade has been doing his agenda review, so I've got to tighten up in the future. But that concludes our review of the agenda. And Ms. Campbell, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and jump right in the council committees.
Absolutely, but I did want to note in the chat that Maggie said that vote from P&Z was actually what the vice mayor said. It was 4-1.
Oh, great. Thank you. So yeah, the vote for the Deerfield project was a 4-1 vote for approval from P&Z. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, so for the council committees, we have 3 that are coming up in September. I will say, because of the timing of this meeting and those council committee meetings, all 3 of these agendas are very much in draft formats. So we still have to meet with committee chairs to finalize. So we've got these pretty clearly marked as drafts. So I'll start with housing and community development. That's September 16th at 10 a.m. On that agenda, we have 3 items. We will have Emily Ball there to provide a COC update. She's going to focus on the affordable housing updates and city investments and the monitoring process that's been put in place as part of the COC. We do plan to give HCD regular updates about the status and progress of the COC. The other item, and again, another exciting one, is James Shelton will be there to talk about the CDBG-DR State of North Carolina Reconstruction Program. So we are providing the state with $3 million of our DR funds that will support home repair programs associated with damage from Hurricane Helene. So we basically provide the state the $3 million, and essentially they will then administer and make sure that home repair is completed and conducted on these eligible properties. So it's almost like we have an oversight role of the state in this scenario. But it really, just to highlight this for a minute, this is truly our first, I think, opportunity of putting DR funds to work in part of the recovery. So this will be one of our first opportunities to put that DR money into action. And again, this is focused on home repair of single family dwellings, primarily, that were damaged through Hurricane Helene. And then the third item on the HCD Council Committee, and this was an item that the committee members themselves discussed, is a discussion on the HCD scope and how that relates to anti-displacement strategies as well as UDO amendments that may impact housing. So really kind of, I think, a high-level policy discussion on the work of the HCD committee and how it connects to those 2 issues. Any questions on HCD? It's a busy agenda coming up. Okay, and I'll move to PED. So the Planning and Economic Development Environment, we have 2 items on that agenda. The first is we'll have Clark Duncan from the EDC at PED to give an overview of the Asheville 5x5 strategic plan. That is a brand new 5-year strategic plan. Clark's going to talk about what they hope to accomplish with that, the power of partnerships, the importance of workforce development, and we've asked Clark to kind of give all that a tie-in and how that connects to our recovery efforts over the next 5 years. And then lastly, on PEDE, and Mayor, go ahead. And you're muted.
I have a question about the HCD agenda. So finish this one and then I'll ask you about that.
Okay, yeah, so real quick, Patton Avenue, as council's aware, that was a report study that was funded by the MPO. Planning staff spent a year or so more working on that, and that report is now completed, and we're going to provide PEDE an overview of the findings from that report. And again, that's really a look at the streetscape and the impacts of Patton Avenue and how that connects to some of the work associated with the 26 project. Councilwoman Roney.
Yeah, just wanted to lift up that we've been getting regular comments at PEDE with folks concerned about our umbrella work around environmental issues and climate justice and climate resiliency. If we have another agenda that isn't somehow making that connection, I expect we'll be called to accountability for that again. So I don't know if there's space for us to bump something into this agenda that shows that we are in fact committed to the full mission of our committee, but maybe that's an update on the urban forestry master plan or some key critical infrastructure. I don't want us to just do work to make work, but if there's a way that we can show the current work that is happening, I think that would be important.
We talked about this yesterday at the chair meeting, and I think that rushing in would be doing work just to fulfill that request, but it looks like October there's conversation to be had. We don't just want to fill space to perform.
Thank you. So I will note we do plan to bring resilience hubs, which is one of our organizational work plan items, as well as an update on the MCAP. Both those items will be scheduled this calendar year for PED to consider. So we do have things in the works and on the way, Councilwoman Roney. Councilwoman Turner.
My comment was going to be about the HCD thing when you're done.
I'm done, so I'll turn it over to you and the mayor for those comments.
Because I got a text from someone too. So I guess I brought up in the HCD meeting the mapping of legacy neighborhoods. And I understand, we've tried as a council to move this forward in some way, and we're not sure how it's moving forward, and we've stalled other things until this is moved forward. So I would like to get it moving. And that's why I brought it up. And then I believe my colleagues also had, other things to layer in, but so we kind of grouped it under just displacement strategy in general. That's where my request was coming from. They may have more to add, but I want us to get our heads around this, and rather than just sit idle on other housing policy while other housing money is coming into the community in such a broad way, I feel like we need movement on this.
That was just going to be my question, which was just what were you all going to do under the HCD scope discussion on anti-displacement strategies and UDO amendments? And I think, Sage, you're saying that was the committee initiated that discussion.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we were talking about changes. We were talking specifically about anti-displacement strategies. And then after that discussion had begun, Sage brought up the legacy neighborhoods, which was really the original discussion in the first place. So we're thinking, because it's housing and community development, at some point we need to talk about community development and what changes to the UDO mean for the neighborhoods and the individual communities. Because from what I've seen, and I was glad to see it, during our meeting, displacement came up in two of the items being presented to us. And typically we haven't had an opportunity to discuss displacement. So I know P&Z has another subcommittee that's specifically set up to discuss displacement. So we want to get in on the action too.
Okay, so kind of look for more. Maybe you guys will do it more than once. It sounds like you might have a discussion, give some direction. And we'll need to.
Oh, sorry, Mayor. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm just in terms of process. I'm just
right
there.
To see if we can bring those discussions in, even on every development that may come to us, every request for funding. There'll be an analysis potentially. We don't know yet, because that's why we're having the discussion. To see how deeply we want to delve into those types of discussions. And it just came up at the last meeting. So we said, okay, we'll put a pin in it and discuss it more fully in the next meeting. So it may end up being nothing. It may be a change in scope or a requested change in scope. Just don't know yet.
Okay, understood. Thanks for that clarification.
Okay, thank you. And I am now, Ms. Campbell, I'll turn it over to you to review the Public Safety Committee agenda.
Okay, thank you, Ben. The Public Safety Committee meeting will be held on September the 25th at 11 o'clock. And the items that are on the agenda for discussion, none of which are, we're requesting any kind of action. We've got the Asheville Fire Department, their quarterly update, and Chief Case is going to present that. And he's going to talk about departmental work plan priorities. In particular, we're going to focus on the activities of our REST team. And Mayor, you may recall at the membership meeting of the COC how many times the REST team was mentioned in terms of their work. So I'm so proud of the work that they have currently underway and how they are collaborating with the community and other service providers. The next one is the Emergency Operations Plan, the After Action Review. As we said on Tuesday, we'll have a broad overview and then have the detailed discussion in Public Safety Committee. And if you read even the charge and the mission and scope of this committee, it specifically identifies emergency operations plan and continuity of operations plan deliberations. So, but we're not necessarily, again, asking for any action. This will be a couple of conversations. And then the last, which has been said earlier, this is a draft agenda, and social districts is on it. We will be having some more detailed conversations with you all later today and tomorrow that are scheduled to see if this remains on the agenda. And Bo, I believe you have a question, and I apologize because it's been said, these meetings happen a little bit before we were able to meet with the chair. So this is definitely draft.
Yes, thank you, City Manager Campbell. Yeah, and I'm not sure even social districts need to come to our committee. I would like to actually see it just on the City Council agenda. But I also want to see more action, especially if we're only meeting every other month. You know, I want to update our Asheville animal ordinances. Our animals deserve better protection than what they're getting. We have issues in West Asheville around open air substance use and crime. We have issues around abandoned buildings that we're getting emails about every single day that we need to address as a council and hold these owners to account. So I would really like to see these more action items on the agenda so that, you know, we're moving with urgency.
Thank you, Councilmember Hess. And I understand your frustration. However, we do work plans, we bring you all priorities, and at some point, there is a limit to our staff capacity and what we can focus on. We will take your comments under consideration and come back to staff and come back with a recommendation, hopefully, when you have your public safety meeting in September.
Or maybe we quarterly, you know, and gives everybody time to work on stuff so that when we are meeting, we're doing, you know, actual work. You know, I mean, I don't think we need to, you know, always just meet and listen to presentations. I would like to, you know, move things forward.
Okay.
Bo, I'd be glad to talk with you too about some of what you're thinking about and how best to tackle that. So anyway, we can follow up after this.
And Sage has that beautiful kitten that's
like that's a big cat, Sage. It's like half of your size.
When I got this cat, it sat in the palm of my hand, and I kid you not, its name is Tiny Cat.
It's not a tiny cat.
It's
like we're on a meeting with Taylor Swift right now.
Oh,
don't cut it off. We want to see the cat. This is making my day.
And that's all we had for the Public Safety Committee. And Ben, 8-week agenda?
8-week agenda is looking pretty thin, but I don't think it'll stay that way. So I do want to cover 3 things coming up on your October meeting. 2 are resolutions to dissolve committees or commissions. So we'll ask you to dissolve the Reparations Commission and the I-26 Connector Aesthetics Committee. But the reason we're asking you to do that is because on Tuesday, they're going to report to you their findings, which will have completed the task they were assigned. So just want to flag that these two commissions are being dissolved, not because they're not needed, because they've completed the task that City Council assigned them to do. And the last thing that I do believe will make people happy, and I don't know the details, but I see a contract for design services for a pickleball complex. So undoubtedly that'll be a big winner at the October council meeting. And with that, that concludes my review of the agenda. And Ms. Campbell, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, I think that concludes our agenda briefing work session, unless there are things, Mayor, Vice Mayor, you all want to add anything?
Just a kind of a quick update. I know we've got some check-in meetings, but yesterday I was able to go down to Raleigh. I was there to speak at a DOT conference, but staff and I did meet with Director Will Ray at the Emergency Operations Center, as well as the fellow that's in charge of the hazard mitigation program. And the governor happened to be at the EOC to be doing a training, so we chatted briefly. And we're working on making sure that our ask around the temporary water filtration system up at North Fork and Beatree continues to be funded through hurricane season, because as you know, we're vulnerable to elevated turbidity if we get into a storm event. So that's taking a lot of work, because we're having some challenges, as is the state at a federal level. Just keeping you in the loop on that one. So, and the hazard mitigation program seems to be moving along pretty well. I got a long lesson in how they do the calculations. Seems very complicated and highly bureaucratic, but ultimately will help a lot of people who have put in applications for that program. So again, also funding issue at a federal level, trying to get the feds to move and sign the checks. Councilwoman, did you have a?
I did. Can we get a reminder? Because I know the lease renewal was like right on the wire. Can we get a reminder of when our current lease ends for the temporary filtration equipment?
The contract for service at Norfolk runs through, I think it's September 20th or 22nd. And Beatree is actually through March, longer than we need. So I think the city, and Deborah, Ben, Jade, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, is in negotiations with the contractor to extend the Norfolk contract. And we right now have the funding for half of what we need sitting on Secretary Noem's desk, waiting for a signature for payment. That's about $12 million, and we need another 11 million to get us through hurricane season. So, and to be able to pay to extend the contract for service through the end of November is the time period.
And just to follow up on that, if I remember right, we got a presentation that we're looking at minimum a year period of time where North Fork is vulnerable to turbidity if we get 4 inches of rain or more.
So we will definitely have that conversation with you all just shortly. I think yours is tomorrow, and we'll have all those details.
And we are applying for funds for a permanent solution.
Absolutely. And the reason that I don't want to go into a level of specificity is because I really want the people who can truly answer the questions and the detail to be on the call and provide that information, so we don't get any kind of misinformation out, particularly around our water system.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Bo?
Yes, I just have going back to the final report on the reparations committee and just a little bit of the process, because I wasn't involved or on council, and I'm getting some emails just requesting some clarification. So what are what are the steps? Like we'll get that report, and then does council then make any action or decisions around that? And, what does that look like? And how do we actually get relief to the people who are deserving it?
So the recommendation would be that you receive the report, that you allow staff, which we are doing currently and have been doing, work on what recommendations are in the purview of the city of Asheville. And then we will identify those. We will work with Heritage I'm sorry if I don't remember all of these names of these commissions and committees. We will work with them on identifying those that we feel the report lists as a high priority and bring those to council for any kind of policy changes, any kind of funding. But the good news is that the commission has created their own 501c3. So they will be working to fundraise and do a number of things that they need to do to create themselves as an entity that can help with implementation. And then lastly, we will ask in October that you dissolve the commission.
Deborah, remind me, please, if we ever adopted the Cease the Harm audit.
You didn't adopt, you received as information.
And if not, and it sounds like we didn't, is it staff's intention to do the same process that you just
Absolutely. It is part of their recommendations. And what we are doing in particular is allowing the commission to identify what they feel are priorities in terms of what they feel will have the greatest impact on the community.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay.
Now that might really be it.
Sorry, Ben, you didn't beat Jade. Next time. All righty. Thank you. See you all, some of you all later on. Bye-bye.